Where are you based?
I live in Pennsylvania, but it's like this most southern part of Pennsylvania. I'm like 45 minutes north of Baltimore.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
A little nothing town called New Freedom.
Ooh, fun name.
It sounds like a place where a militia might start.
From Geppetto Studios in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, welcome to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, your home for inclusive, positive geek culture, where we talk about movies, comics, music, books, and whatever else we feel like. Please welcome your host.
That's the great thing about mistakes is it gives you something to learn from as long as you don't feel like jumping off a bridge after it happens.
Brad Mendenhall.
Hey kids, it is episode 237 of the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast. Musician Lydia Luce joins me to talk about her new album, Dark River. Lydia has worked with Dolly Parton, Eminem, Rod Stewart, and now she has hung out with me.
It makes sense because I'm often referred to as the Dolly Parton of podcasting.
I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Anywho, it is a dark night in a grim city that for legal reasons we are not calling Gotham.
Hello, Selena.
Dark night.
Thank you for meeting me on this rooftop.
Of course. Need to stop these smugglers. So, when should they be here?
Midnight.
That gives us an hour.
It does.
I know how to pass the time.
You mean?
I do.
Okay, let me undo my utility belt.
Actually, I thought you could. You know.
The horizontal Batusi?
No. You know.
I know?
You know.
Oh, you're talking about...
Yes, I am.
Sure.
Really?
Of course. Fair warning, I'm no Aquaman.
Because he's good at...
Diving, yeah.
Got it.
Shall we?
Yup. I'll need help out of this costume. It has more belts and zippers than the village people's locker room.
Is that a lot?
Shut up and hold my whip.
Joining me today is a musician, a singer-songwriter, Lydia Luce, who I am convinced that your album, Dark River, is amazing, and it feels like it's the perfect time for this album to come out. It seems like there's a lot of great music out there right now that, like, the whole world is ready for what you're putting out into the world. And when I hear wonderful musicians like especially Haim, who was all over the Grammys, And it feels like it's a perfect time for someone with your type of music, with your amazing vocals and the production and everything. And I'm just so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wow, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's just very cool. And I've been listening to your album pretty much on a loop. With Dark River, what makes it so cool for me is, and it's a rare type of album where I listen to it, like I have my favorite songs, and then the next time I listen to it, something else becomes my favorite. But it's also an album that makes me want to listen to other stuff, because I'm sure you pull inspiration. I mean, it's definitely its own thing, but it also is like, oh, this has a little bit of feel of, specifically thinking of Leave Me Empty, which is this gorgeous song. And it reminded me just a little bit of Roseanne Cash's 7 Year Ache. And then I had to stop and listen to some Roseanne Cash after listening to you.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know if that's something that you hear in your own music. I know you've an accomplished musician, and you've worked with some pretty impressive acts, and something we can get to that I would like to touch on also. Do you hear that in your own music, or is it just, you've been absorbing music and you may not be mentally aware of or consciously aware of the influence?
I think it's the second one. But I understand that with listening to other records, like other people's music, where you're like reminded of something and then it takes you down this rabbit hole of music and just kind of like songs bouncing off of each other. But maybe because it's my own, I don't do that. I haven't had that yet. But also I'm sure, like I can tell you the that I had probably like within the year of writing the record, and I'm sure there's like so many similarities. But I do think it's also just kind of like a compilation of the things that I've been absorbing throughout my life of listening to music and playing different types of music. And like Roseanne Cash, I don't really listen to her. And so it's cool that for you that took you there.
Roseanne Cash did a deep dive into her not that long ago, because I sent my parents to see her like 2 years ago to see her in concert. I like made them a CD, because I'm an old guy who makes CDs for people, and it made it so it's like, oh, listen to this while you're driving to the concert, so you can listen to all her hits, and these are songs that she's going to play. It was a neat thing where her peak popularity wise was in the 70s and 80s. She was a country star, I guess, but wasn't stuck in that genre. So there would be some pop influence, some rock influence, and all mixed there. And that's something that I think I hear a little bit about from you, where you don't seem to be really stuck in one particular genre. It just seems like you play the music that you want to play, which is really very cool to listen to.
Thanks. Yeah, that's especially for this record. We kind of just I didn't really go in with a genre in mind and just kind of produce the songs as they wanted to be produced per song. Like, I don't know, there's not one whole genre that can like sum up the whole record. They all live in different places, but they all fit on the record because of so many other things. So I definitely don't like getting stuck in one genre, because music's just so fun to make and write. And I might be into one thing at one point and might change. Like that's why I like musicians like Beck and just artists that like Bon Iver, who have like either lots of different projects or have like you can listen to different records of theirs and they're just like the chapter of their musical journey that they were in at that time, and they might not all sound the same, and I think that's cool.
Was that something that you had to make a conscious decision partway through or at the beginning? Was there a point where you're like, oh, this is very different than what I've done before, or worrying about, oh, maybe I should really throw an extra heaping of violin on this to give it Nashville feel? Or did you know going right in, it's like, no, these songs are going to be what they are?
I think it was that like they were already like stylistically different in just the song themselves, like standalone. I don't know. I feel like if you try to force something to be anything that it's not, it comes off it's very like apparent. And so if I was to say like, oh, well, this doesn't fit like with this song, let me add more like what you said, like strings or something to make it sound similar or fit into some box that the record should fit into, then I think it would be very obvious to the listener. And I think that you have to just kind of like gift the song what it needs naturally, organically, and what you're like either the musicians that are playing on it are feeling it needs, or you yourself as the producer. So yeah, I definitely was just kind of a let's just see what happens. What does this song want?
It sounds so obvious. It's like, yeah, just play the music and what the songs are what they are. So many people do that badly. I think it's because it can seem a little opportunistic. I've talked before where it seems a lot of musicians go into do one of two things. You have the one group who they have their hit song or their hit formula, and they're just going to every subsequent song and every subsequent album. It's just going to be a slight variance on that formula. And that can work great. It can. Or you have the person who they have their pop album and then they're no longer beloved by that audience. So then they're going to do their country album. Then they're going to start having the rap breaks during their songs or whatever change to try to go with the winds of where the music industry is taking them. And it's really hard to do neither. It's like this song, this album, whatever, is going to be very different than what has been done before. But it's not because I want to do whatever's going to sell well, just because that's what this song it should be, and to still make it feel cohesive. Because while the songs on Dark River are very different from each other in a lot of ways, it doesn't feel like you pull together your favorite songs from three wildly different albums and you get the whiplash listening to it.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if you create the same thing. Like if you're creating a song to please anybody, then it's not going to be authentic to you. Or if you're creating a song to fit into something or to make somebody happy, or if you're creating it from this place of like, I think this person or people will like this, then I feel like you're missing the opportunity to just like create organically and from wherever creation comes from. I think it's best to just not like force it into something. But yeah, there are so many people that I mean, everybody does it differently. And I do think also like I co-write, and that I think does create a difference of sound and songs because I'm writing with people that are different than me and have different ideas. And so like the more we collaborate with different people, the more variety you'll get in the sounds and the songs. So I think that probably had a hand in the genres of the songs as well.
So when you're writing and you have writing with others, um, first off, I'm really interested in your process. Is it lyrics first and then making music that works around it? Is it music first? Even from there, you're a multi instrumentalist. What instruments do you write with?
I just write with guitar. I used to write with viola, and then it just got a little funky and I just started playing more guitar. It just depends. Like if I'm in a heavy writing cycle and I'm journaling a lot, then I might come up with the lyrics first. And this past year, I was trying to just create habits and structures for writing more, especially because we had so much time and it was like just a weird year. So I would journal in the morning, and then that would kind of progress into a free write, and lyrics might come up or ideas. Sometimes I'll just sit down with my guitar and just start noodling and messing around with stuff and singing, and like I might have an idea, a lyric, just a one line that I might have an idea for. It might spark something. But I'm reading this book right now called, I think it's called Big Magic, and it's about creating. And I think, I don't know, there's just it's a really magical thing, like creating. And the way this book describes it, it's for everybody. Like creating is for everybody. And this like this woman describes getting a song idea or getting a book idea or whatever as like this creative energy coming like just kind of floating around and deciding who it's going to inhabit. And I love that idea because every day looks different with creating. Like I might sit down and really try to hash out this idea that takes me multiple days and maybe I don't get anywhere with it. Or I might sit down and write a song in like 2 hours. And it's so weird how there's no rhyme or reason. So we just keep trying, and I like the way that she described that because it is an interesting, like, where does creativity come from? It obviously comes from our experiences and ourselves, but I think there's something extra to it too.
I haven't wished it to be true for quite some time. I often sleep without waking in the night, but occasionally you cross my mind. Sing hallelujah in the morning when I rise, and keep it with me every moment passing by. Then occasionally you cross my mind.
I remember, and there's a very different personality and very different music, but Chris Robinson, the lead singer for and songwriter for the Black Crowes, talked about that, and he wasn't opposed to adding some very fanciful language to it, but he called it the song. He's like, there's just a big song that we all tap into, and we just tap into the song and let it flow through us, which was such a cool idea, that all the different variants of music all coming from sort of a similar place, and that's really gives you a feeling of connection.
I think takes a little pressure off of it, like the seriousness of it. Like she had an opportunity to, this is Elizabeth Gilbert I'm talking about. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And she had an opportunity to interview Tom Waits. The way he describes creativity is similar to that, and just like so freeing, because it, like, he talks about not taking it so seriously. Like you might get that idea or it might come to you, but it might not, or maybe it was meant for somebody else, and just like let it go and wait for the next one. But consistency is key as well. Like if you're choosing a life as a creator, you have to show up for that life, and you have to show up for the opportunities and the moments for create like those creative ideas. So, but then not to be not to be like disappointed or too hard on yourself when it's like you just can't crack the code. You'll get the next one, or that was meant for someone else. I really like that idea, like how you're saying, like everybody's tapping into one song, because to me it just takes the pressure off of it. Like, okay, well, it will get made by somebody else, and that's awesome and cool.
For the music for Dark River, I always liked this too, because I've heard of some musicians I really like, Paul Westerberg being one example, where one of his albums was, a lot of the lyrics were, and song ideas were from stuff that he had written 20 years previous. And he just went through some old notebooks and he found stuff. And it was sort of a thing where when he wrote those first ideas, those first inklings of lyrics, he wasn't ready for that song. And it was then now, as somebody a little older who would, his son was in college now and in a very different part of his life, oh, now he was ready to take that. He wasn't ready for the song, which I found a really interesting idea. So for Dark River, is everything that you've written, was it a thing where you spent however long period of time saying, okay, now I'm going to start working on this album and everything is new from here? Or did you take old ideas and find a home for them on this LP?
Well, some of the songs were just a little bit older, but everything was written within about a year and a half. And then towards the end, like of 2019, I wrote a lot of the songs on the record, but I haven't done a lot of that where I've like put a song down or a song idea down and then picked it up years later or months later. I think I just get really ADD, and also I probably like maybe there's stuff that I should sort through and look back on in my phone and think, and maybe something could be finished that hasn't been finished. But for this record, a lot of the songs kind of were written around the same time period. And so it's easy also for me to like look at like, oh yeah, that's what was going on within those 2 years, as like that's that chapter of my life, and to identify a theme a little bit of the record too, and just some of the stuff that was happening. But yeah, they were mostly written in, I'd say, 2019.
So one thing that has struck me listening to your music and researching you, because I wanted to come with good questions, because I want us to be friends, because I really think your music's so good, and it's like I say, it seems so fit into where a lot of taste in music is going right now. I think this is something that's, I think a lot of people are going to find and really glom onto because it's so cool. And I want you to do more interviews with me later when you're really big.
Deal.
All right, fantastic. Made a new friend. But one thing that really strikes me is it's really not fair because you're very good at a lot of things. You have a beautiful voice. Not only is it a good voice, but you also, this should seem like no kidding, but it's not always the case, but you're also a very good singer. And I'm thinking of the song Somehow, which, gosh, it felt like you were really, like your emotions were coming through the song. Like I really felt touched listening to it. So that's amazing. You're a guitarist and excellent violinist. It really isn't fair that you're so good at so many things. When you look in the mirror, do you see a singer? Do you see a songwriter? Do you see a violinist? Do you see a guitarist? Like, is there something that you see as like you're the one thing first and everything else sort of follows along with it?
No, not really. Like I love all of the I think I'm a creator. I love all of the things that I get to do in my creative career. Like I have this organization called Lachlan Strings, and it's essentially like a community of string players and artists and composers, and I love the like wrangler of humans and like and events and creating experiences for people to come and listen to music and experience that together and create in beautiful environments. I love doing that. I love like obviously playing and creating the songs, but I like when I think about like my career and just the future of whatever is going to happen, like I just want to be doing what I'm doing, but just a little bit more of it or whatever. I love being able to do a lot of different things, because I think if I did just the artist thing or something, it would drive me crazy. Like I love being the support to other artists and getting to play alongside and or even just getting to curate events. I love that part too. That's another really creative opportunity. I don't know. I think I just think of myself as a creative person who needs to be doing that in order to live. I feel like I gotta do it.
So you sort of like a feeling of community with other creatives,
Oh yes, yeah.
which isn't a gimme. I remember I was talking with somebody who was trying to break into the Baltimore music scene, and he was like he was very young. He was in a new band, and he would try to go around and introduce himself to the acts that he was opening for, or other openers, or if it was a festival, try and talk to. And he said, "You'd be surprised how many people aren't interested in making that connection, being part of that community." And it could have been a thing, and it might have been the genre of music he was involved with, or the area, or where the Baltimore music scene was at, where it was a little more cutthroat. But it was really he was really sad about that because he wanted to have that community and figured there'd be value to. It's like, okay, we are all musicians. We can give each other pointers and give each other advice. And hey, you never know when you're going to need a bassist to jump in one day, or you're going to need a drummer because your other drummer's hurt in surgery or hungover, and you need someone to step in. And having that community can be really helpful.
Yes, yeah. I think there's a lot of like competition just naturally because I don't know, people feel like there's only that one slot or that one opportunity, but there's so many. And I kind of just view it as we're all running in our own lanes, and we're all just trying to like do our own thing that's unique to us. Like, there are artists that are similar to me and have similar sound, but they're not me. And so for me to like compete with them is a missed opportunity, because instead we can work together, or I don't know, play together, create together, or do whatever. And it's also like, I've lived in LA, I've lived in Boston, and then I've moved here 5 years ago. So Nashville is a very different community than LA too. So I think it depends on like where you're at and the music community. But this one has been so supportive, and so like, when I first moved here, I was just I felt like I was welcomed with open arms, like just given opportunities before even really like having to prove myself or something. And so I try to do that too now with people. Like, I was given that opportunity, and I want to do that too. If somebody reaches out to me and is like, I want to play with Lachlan strings, like, awesome, let's do it. I feel like there doesn't need to be, like, music doesn't need to be this exclusive thing.
You let me in again into your world, darker than velvet, warmer than air, taking me down, but I willingly go, dancing in arbitrary motion. This ends in silence, this ends in flames. I can't be with you, I can't stay away, tied to an oath, an unholy vow, keeping me bound to you somehow. Take, oh love, take me with you when you go. I just can't let go.
Seems to be a thing in all forms of entertainment, from the performers and the creators to the fans, where the need to be exclusive. And I've heard some musicians who have lamented the fact that when they've been able to achieve more success, there's a weird divide between their fandom, from the people who were the fans at the early part to the people who become fans because of they get the hit song. The old fans are mad at the new fans, which always seemed crazy to me. It's like, I want everyone that I like musically to have a ton of success, because the more success they have, means the more music and more opportunities they're going to have to create music.
Yeah, it's so silly to me. Like, we're not, I don't know, especially as a listener and as a fan, as a supporter, just support. Yeah, I feel like that is a funny thing of like, I found it first, or like, I knew them before they were cool.
Oh yeah, and you'll hear so many people. It's like, oh, I liked the first album, the one before everyone else liked it. It's like, well, I mean, that's great.
Oh my gosh, that is such a thing. It's so true.
I'm very curious, as a songwriter, you did something very cool, and right off the top of the album, you had the song "Occasionally." It does something that I really like, where I hear it, and I've never heard anything like it, lyrically especially, and I can't believe no one else had dialed into that idea. The idea of just occasionally you have that person in your life that you just think of. And I was like, oh, and I think we've all have that. We all have the thing of like, the guy that took you to the prom, or the girl that you dated when you're a sophomore in college, or whatever it is. For me, it just made me think, it's like, those are people that are friends, or whatever they are, where, okay, if you see someone on TV, an actor that you saw in a movie that you saw with someone, he pops up, it's like, oh, and it just sort of creates that spiral. And that's what it made me think of occasionally. It felt bigger than just that little blips that I'm talking about. I was like, I can't believe no one else has written this. And that's so cool.
Thank you.
Is that something intentional where you're looking for those little personal experiences and pulling them into the music? Or was it even that much of a conscious thing?
For that one, there wasn't as much of a like a specific example. Like a lot of my songs are very personal. Like I can tell you exactly the moment that I'm writing about or thinking about, and they're very specific. But that one I think is a more broad, and actually for me, that song is a little bit more about anxiety and like having that thing that occasionally pops up in your mind, bringing you anxiety, and then finding peace from it sometimes, but not knowing when it will come up. So, and that's what I love about music too, is just the meanings behind, like the songs can mean so many different things to so many different people, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't, there's no true me. Like, I'm not going to be like, no, the song's like about this. It's personal to the listener, it's personal to the writer, and there's no wrong meaning. It's just, it is what it is, whatever it's interpreted to be.
Yeah, it's sort of a case of you have this great song that you wrote from your own experience or the anxiety. When I hear it, and whatever's going on in my head sort of mixes with that message, and all of a sudden I come with a very different interpretation. I imagine that's neat as long as nobody turns around and tells you no, that's not what you meant when you wrote this song.
I haven't had that happen yet. I love hearing whatever people, I love hearing people's experiences with the songs. It's so interesting to me, like, because I do that with people's music, and we are more often, we don't know what the songs are about. Like, unless we're like diehard fans and we're like, I must know what this is about. So we always interpret them to be whatever, or we're thinking about that person's story and we're like, oh, I wonder what happened in their lives to create this song and this story. But I think it's really cool to, and also I think that songs can mean different things in different times in your life. Like songs can represent different chapters. And so even the songs that I've written in the past, like they might mean something different to me now than they did back then.
I went onto your YouTube page, which I love, by the way. One thing that I really liked is little lessons on some of your songs. I love that.
Do you? Good. That's very new. That's only been up for a week. So I'm so happy you like that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm in this group of, speaking of like supportive artists, like I'm in this group of women. We don't have a name for our group yet, but it's just independent female artists right now. We're also not exclusive. Males can join too, but so far it's just girls. And we were talking about how cool it is, like when people cover each other's songs. And I was like, well, I love that. Like every once in a while, people will tag me and they've just learned the songs on their own. But since posting that a week ago, like I've had people be like, oh, I can never find your lyrics. Thank you so much for sharing this. Like, and it's so cool. Like it brings me so much joy to hear people singing along and learning the song. So yeah, I'm gonna do it for maybe a couple more as well, I think.
I loved it because I play a little bit of guitar. As soon as I hear a song I like, almost absentmindedly, I'll do the Google searches, like where are the chords, what are the chords. So often, four different versions that are wildly different will pop up. Every version is kind of right, and you can sort of make work, but actually having it come from the person, and these are the right chords because it'd be really weird if you didn't know them. You just sort of strum along and show the chords, and that's great. And walk through with it. And it's not a lesson. It's not like a lesson. It's just like it's also a neat way to listen to the song.
Yeah. It's kind of like a baby performance too. Very close up performance of just the neck of my guitar.
Have you heard a cover of one of your songs that was really neat or really different?
Yeah, I've heard a couple from this record, just from people tagging me on Instagram and like sharing them. Just like acoustic versions for older stuff. I've had people tag me in like they've choreographed songs, which is so cool. I grew up dancing, and just such a fan of dance and movement as a form of art and creativity too. And so that is awesome. I love when people do that. Or I've also had people just like singing really loud in their car and they video and tag me in it, and that's really fun too.
I've always liked when people do something really weird and different that you wouldn't expect with a song and choreographing the music. That's awesome. Taking your creation and making completely different creation stemming from that must be like really satisfying.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's so cool. It's like if you can spark somebody else's creativity, that's a really cool thing, I think.
And I love a good weird cover. Maddie Diaz, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
Yeah, I'm playing my first live show in a year, and she's going to play it as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
She's amazing. And she does a great cover sometimes of the Paula Abdul song Straight Up.
Oh, I've never heard that. I haven't heard her do that.
Wonderful. And it's like a solo acoustic. And Maddie Diaz has this great voice, and she just belts it out and is very slow and somber and really pulls out an unknown sadness to that song.
Oh, yeah, she's really good at that. At like just breaking you. Breaking you down. Her new music is incredible.
I've heard a little bit of it. It sounds great because she did some very poppy with a lot of electronic there for a while, and it seems like she's going sort of it's not going back to her roots, but something that has a bit of that older flavor, but still has the influence that she had. Really cool stuff. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Good night, baby. Sleep tight, my love. May God watch over you from above. Tomorrow I'm working. What would I do? I'd be lost and lonely if not for you.
Speaking of really cool covers, on your YouTube page, you had a Tom Petty cover, "All Right for Now," which I love that song,
Oh, yeah.
and that was a gorgeous rendition.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that song too.
What I really liked about your cover is, you incorporated the violin really well into that, and I love violin in a pop song or a rock song. There's been some great, one of my favorite songs, and it's a straight ahead rock song, Bob Mould's "See a Little Light," and it has a violin solo instead of like an electric guitar solo. It has a violin solo, and I love that.
Yeah, I think it's cool to bring in different instruments.
With your covers or anything like that, or with your own music, when do you know it's time to bring in the violin or stay with the guitar? I mean, have there been songs? I imagine there's been songs where you've tried it both ways, where it's like straight ahead guitar or bringing in the single violin, or you have a couple songs with a lot of strings. Do you have like multi versions of a lot of these songs, trying it different ways?
I've probably tried them live different ways, like at shows. Like for that particular one, I played violin because I knew I wanted to have like two people playing the guitar parts, like with interesting harmonies, almost like a duet. And so the violin just kind of sits on top and is, yeah, just like an addition to that. And that's the foundation of the song. Yeah, it just depends on what the song wants, and maybe also if it's like too hard for me to play on guitar, I'll be like, I'll play violin. Violin and viola are my first instruments, and guitar is definitely my third, I'd say.
Like even with your, we talked about your little tutorials, and I know guitar often, especially if you're the singer, it's a lot easier to play rhythm guitar because it goes better along with the singing, so you're sort of in the same rhythm. But you play like a really neat full guitar. Is that sort of where you see yourself? You're a rhythm guitarist, but when you want to be the front person, the soloist, that's when the violin comes out?
No, I mostly play guitar when I am performing live. I actually always play guitar when I'm performing live. And I just kind of am more of the support and like I'll finger pick, but I'm not soloing for sure. But if it's a full band and it makes sense for me to play violin, I'll do that. But I guess like when I'm thinking about live shows, I've just done them so many different ways and I like to switch it up a lot too, just for my sanity. It's really fun to play with different people and different instruments, and yeah, just to keep the songs feeling fresh too, especially when you're playing them a lot.
That actually brings me to something that I always like asking performers, creators, because the production and the richness of the sound of your music is really amazing. You listen to it, it's like, oh, this is somebody who really likes being in the studio. But I've seen some clips of you performing live, and you seem to pull really cool energy from that. Do you see yourself as more of a live performer, or do you really like being in the studio, or is it some combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. I think they both hold different opportunities. Like I really like obviously this year has been so weird, but I miss it's made me miss performing. Like I love like I said, curating events and shows and I love playing with people. Like playing with a string quartet is one of my favorite things to do in the world. It's just so it's really cool to be a part of that and kind of immersed in the sound and in the music. So I love doing that. And then I love getting to play in the studio too. And that's both as a string player and as an artist. Like I love doing session work, but it's really fun to play live shows too, because it's just a different energy. Like when you have a full audience, you're sharing that experience with them as well. It's cool. It's different than like you're just in the studio and you're creating it with your fellow musicians. They're both really unique and awesome experiences.
Well, speaking of doing session work, going through your resume, if you will, listed artists that you've worked with. Three names here that really pop out: Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, and Eminem.
Yeah.
All three very awesome in three unique ways. How collaborative was it? Or were you sort of brought in for a specific song or a specific track? How were those experiences? Because those are gigantic names. Doing session work for people like that, I imagine they were very different experiences from one to the next.
The Dolly Parton one was a session, but the other two were actually live performances. So the Dolly one was for her. She put out, or there was a movie that was all Dolly's music called Little Dumplin'. I don't know if you remember it. It came out a couple years ago.
Yeah, a year or two ago, that was like a Netflix thing. They got a lot of press. Jennifer Aniston was involved in that?
Yeah, it was with Jennifer Aniston. So I played the string parts on that, on a lot of her songs, and she was there. But it was more of like a here are the string charts, come in and play. It wasn't like string sessions aren't really collaborative in that way. They're kind of like these are the charts. You come in and play them, and you play them perfectly, like and you sight read them. But the live stuff, I got to play with Eminem at Bonnaroo. That was really crazy and fun. And he was the headliner. And then the Willie Nelson one was actually a part, it was one song in Boston, and it was his song Nightlife. And he is just awesome. That was really a really cool experience too. Yeah, the live shows are super fun with like huge artists because it's like I don't know if I'll ever get to that stage with my own art career, my like artist career, but to like I played with Michael Bublé 2 years ago and it was like just I don't know, just a huge audience and same with Eminem and I've played with Rod Stewart before, just like huge audience. It's just such a crazy experience. I don't know what it would be like to be the front man for something like that, and have to entertain that many people. It's crazy, but it really fun. Such fun experiences.
What do you figure might be the biggest audience you've played for?
Bonnaroo was definitely the biggest.
So you're playing for tens of thousands of people, and it must be such a different type of performing than performing in front of a small club or small crowd where it is very intimate.
Totally different. I mean, I've never played my own show for obviously that many people. So I don't know what that would be like as a performer, as a front man, but it is interesting. Like there's so many people, you almost can't fathom it. When you're in a small, intimate space with like attentive listeners, it's almost more, I almost get like more nervous because you're like, oh, I can see you and your faces, and I can tell you're listening and that you really care. It's really special. And it's also like,
It's a lot of responsibility.
yeah, responsibility but really cool.
Lloyd Cole, I'm a big Lloyd Cole fan. He was doing one show, and he was talking to the audience. He's like, and he expressed his appreciation for everyone being there. And he says, "Listen, I play smaller venues, and I can tell when a couple is here, and only one member of the couple wants to see me. Sir, I'm going to do the best to win over your girlfriend. Ma'am, I'm going to try to get your husband to have as good a time as you are."
That's so funny.
Have you had that where you're performing, and it could be a thing of you can tell that there's a date there, and the young woman is a big fan, and her boyfriend doesn't know you, or you being an opener uh, and trying to win over the opening crowd?
I mean, I've had more of that experience where like I've opened for country artists who's like completely different vibes than me, like rowdy country audience. That is so hard. Honestly, it's very difficult. But yeah, I do go in with kind of that mindset. But there is also an element, I think, of just you have to kind of just accept and embrace your differences, and like that audience might not like me, and that's fine. Like I'm not a rowdy country artist. And at that time too, I was opening as a solo act. So it's like they're wanting that big, they want to get drunk and listen to country music. And I'm just not going to provide that for you, but that's fine. We can still have a good time. Like, and then I've also like experienced where it's just like very loud and you're trying to just get them to listen to you. Yeah, there's been so many. Performing is an interesting thing.
I went to a Matthew Sweet show, and they had this great opening act, the Bridges. That they were signing autographs and stuff. And I remember I went down. They were so good, and I wanted to like just impress upon. It's like, hey, I had a great time, and I wanted to know, like, will you have an album coming out, or are you touring with? Are you continuing with this tour? Or are you gonna do other stuff? And I was like really, and I enjoyed it so much. But then there was an awkward moment where the young woman who was the lead singer all of a sudden started to look really uncomfortable with me talking to her too long. It's like she thinks I'm chatting her up. Oh, I gotta. I've gone from like being impressed and trying to make her understand I was really impressed with the performance. It's like, oh, now I'm just a creepy guy in his 30s who's trying to talk her up. I was like, no, I just want your autograph and say it was great.
Oh, that's funny. It's hard to tell, I suppose. But yeah, I've also had that same tour, like an audience that didn't speak English. And so it's going to be really hard for me, the person that they don't know, to win them over when also like they don't understand what I'm saying. But great learning experiences, you know?
Do you do a lot of banter with the audience when you perform?
I kind of do. I feel like I talk a lot about the song meaning, and yeah, maybe to a fault. Maybe it's too much talking. It depends. I try to like read the room and see what people want. But yeah, I think it's fun to like share those stories because like if you don't hear it at a live show, when are you going to know what the songs are about?
I love a good concert banter because if I just wanted to hear the song, I could stay home and hear the song.
Exactly. You get to know their personalities too.
I've been to many concerts where the performer just came out, sang the song, did a very good job singing the songs, and 5 songs in, they say, "Hey, thanks for coming out," and then they would say at the last song is like, "Hey, be safe going home." I was like, it would be great to have a little more connection when going to a concert because it's so cool to be in the same room of this person whose music you love.
I agree. I like the milk carton kids do a really good job. And it's interesting too, every artist has like a different way of stage bantering. Some people plan out everything they're gonna say to a T, like their jokes, everything. And some artists kind of just go up there and ad lib and see what happens. And I've done a little bit of both, but more just the ad lib. which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
Even when it doesn't work, it's still fun because then that's still you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I've heard of one or two acts and big acts where, oh, it turns out she has really bad stage fright, so she needs to even have her ad libs, her quote unquote ad libs or her banter on the teleprompter because she's just so focused on the teleprompter because she's terrified of looking out into the audience. And I get it. At least there is that, but it does. It hurts the spontaneity. Sometimes a joke that doesn't land can be more endearing than a pre-planned gag that does.
Especially if you're like, okay, cool, that wasn't funny, but here's the next song, or you're like, okay, we all see that didn't work. Like, I don't know, when you're embracing the moment, and you're just kind of honest about it. I appreciate that.
Lydia, the last question. I know you got to be letting you go. You've been so generous with your time. I want to know what you think on your new album. What is the song, the gateway song, the song that you think somebody first becoming acquainted with your music, what they should listen to first to really pull them into your music?
I like Tangled Love a lot. I think maybe that song.
That's the one for you. So when I send this around to everyone, because I've been working on my friends and of course my kids, because when I'm driving to drop them off at school, I've been playing your music.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great one for me. Like I say, I love Occasionally and Never Been Good, which has a neat video.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. That's my boyfriend is the Gold Man.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. He animated the Dark River video too, and he actually played drums on my record too. We do a lot of creating together.
We're getting a lot of use out of him.
I really am, honestly. He's the actor, he's an animator, it's awesome.
I like your video so much, and I love that song, and it's a neat little twist of a lyric that, never been good, add goodbyes, and that's such a cool little twist around that. I like that so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great album. Lydia, where can people go and listen to your music? Where can they find out about any upcoming tour dates when the world returns to some semblance of normal? Plug your pluggables.
My website is lydialuce.com, and you can find the hopefully one day tour dates there. And yeah, I'm on Spotify, on Apple Music, anywhere you can think to find music, you'll be able to find my music.
I recommend everyone do that. I recommend if you play a little guitar, go on to Lydia's YouTube page and play along, and maybe record yourself singing her songs and send it back to her so she can see how she's inspiring everyone.
I would love that. I promise to reshare it if you want me to, but if you don't, then that's fine. I would love to see that, though.
Sounds great. And Lydia, we would love to have you back. Will you please return?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Somehow, when the sun begins to go down and the sky is on its way out, stars are falling to the ground.
That wraps episode 237. Big thanks to Lydia Luce. Dark River is really good. I've been listening to Not Very Good on a loop, hoping she returns even after she gets big. Also big thanks to Murren and Jessa. They are now my favorite Batman and Catwoman. Sorry, Michael and Michelle. Next time on the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, speaking of the Dark Knight, Dr. Anna Peppard returns to talk about whether Batman would, do that. Till then, in the words of Jarf Hardin,
see you in the funny pages.
If I never wake from sleeping, kaleidoscopes and dreaming, I'd give anything to keep this.
Subscribe to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever quality podcasts can be found. Rate and review us while there. Follow us on Twitter at CosmicGPod, and we will follow you back. Unless you're a jerk. We don't follow jerks. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cosmic Geppetto. We love hearing your ideas for upcoming episodes. Email us at cosmicgeppetto@comcast.net.
Living near Baltimore, the rats are almost, they just turn them into a mascot because it's a lot easier to turn them into a mascot than trying to get rid of them.
Oh, I hope that it comes my way. A little light that shines throughout the day and keeps me glowing all around. Somehow.
We actually had random Amish cows show up in our front yard. That was odd.
Well, that's friendly.
Sadly, it didn't happen when I was home. So I come back and my neighbor's like, "Hey, Brad, just want to let you know there were Amish cows in your front yard." I was like, "How do we know they were Amish cows?" I was like, "Because the Amish came and got them." I was like, "That tracks." But we just want to let you know that Amish cows were hanging out in your front yard. So if mowing the lawn, you're not completely shocked if Amish cows did what Amish cows do in your front yard.